scene controllers. I haven't needed it personally. I can show you briefly how I arrange my preset, and I know everything's different and different needs and everything, but the way I do it, I kind of don't need that. It really depends on how much you're trying to cram into one preset and like the features you need. The way to do it, not using scene controllers, is really to use the different channels. So in this preset, since we have 4 amp channels, and I try to keep the same preset between the FM3 and everything, so I only use 1 amp block, I have 4 fundamental guitar tones, and I use the different channels for that. And then to adjust those guitar tones, I use other blocks to modify kind of what the preset is doing. So I have this clean preset, which I have like a chorus on. And then to make it my lead preset, rather than adjusting amp things, I just add an EQ block. So in scene 2, it's basically the same thing. I add a delay. I used to turn off the comp. That's what I was just working on. I turn off the pitch and I add an EQ block to boost the sound. And then I do some cuts if I need to. So this is... So this is the same amp everything. I don't use any controllers for this, like scene controllers and things. I use other blocks to adjust what this amp does. I kind of approach it that way. Yeah, I'll use my clean tone. And what we can do is, let's use a scene controller between scene 1 and 2. I'm going to copy scene 1 to 2. Current scene to 2. So I'm going to overwrite my other thing. So now scene 1 and 2 are the same. Right? So in scene 2, let's use a scene controller to turn the drive down. I'm just picking things to do. So we're going to turn the drive down in scene 2. So first you want to grab the amp block, and we're going to right click on this. And let's just use scene controller 1. And the important thing here is setting your minimum and maximum. Now for this 0 through 10, it's pretty easy when you go to the scene control dials, because the scene control dials are 0 to 100%. And then what it's controlling could be 0 to 10, like minus 80 to plus 20. So you really want to look at what the min max is and set it to the actual limits you want. This is an important step that some people miss. And if you do miss it, it's fine. You can still use the scene controller dial, to put where you want, but maybe you don't want that whole range. You don't want it to go all the way down to 0. I'm going to leave it there for now because 0 to 10 makes sense, 0 to 100. So we're just going to leave that for now. I think we don't need anything else. Also, make sure you don't turn on auto engage. That controls the block on and off. And usually you don't want that when you're using scene controllers. So anyway, it's set. So now we have my amp drive at 0. So there's no sound. Yeah, my volume pedal's up. Okay. So what we want to do now is go to our controllers and go to our scene controllers. So again, because 0 to 10 works with 0 to 100 very, very simply, we can put this at 40% and we'll have a drive of 4. But we wanted scene 1 to be higher gain than scene 2. So let's play and turn this up. I also see that my remnants of the previous controller is there, so make sure you reset it, I guess. So now we have some gain. Let's go to 40. That should get us back to where we were. Okay. And if we look at the amp block, it goes very, very specifically 0 to 10 and 0 to 100 are the same thing with a 0 added. So 4 and 40, same thing. So now when I go to scene 1, I have this set to 40. Now, keep in mind, all of my other scenes are affected by this because I told it to. I said, all channels work with this scene controller, right? Anyway, so now we have this. This is our bass tone. Right? Now, we need to go back to controllers. Let's match this for now so we have the same exact thing between scene 1 and scene 2. Right? Okay. Now, what we wanted in scene 2 is we want it to be lower drive for some reason. Okay, so let's just turn this down to like 10 or something, somewhere around there. Well, now it's quiet, right? because we have a lower drive and there's less tone, or less, yeah, drive, input, gain, all that. So the tone is different. Anyway, so we want to adjust the level. Now, here's where it gets interesting for several reasons. One, if you're ever going to put a controller on level, definitely turn down like your main volume, or just make sure you're not going to blast yourself, okay? Because the level parameter can go all the way up to +20. So we're going to be very careful here. I'm going to try and not blow any ears here. But what we could do is we could assign scene controller 2, you know, a separate scene controller to level. That is the easiest way if you have extra scene controllers. So what we can do is scene 1 sounds exactly how we want. Okay. And we have a level of -3. Now what we're going to do is assign a scene controller here, and it's going to drop it or change it. So we kind of want to remember the range we were at. So here we go. All my scene controllers of scene controller 2 are all the way down. So we're going to add scene controller to the level. There it is. Now it's dropped all the way. So here's where I was talking earlier. It's very important to set your min max. Very, very important. Right now, if I were to go to the scene controller dials and adjust it all the way up by accident, I would be at +20. I don't think I ever need that. So I'm going to turn that to 0 dB or close to it. Something like that. I probably never need to go higher than that. In the future, if I do, I can raise it and then adjust things. I'm also going to change the min to like -20. I usually never have to go lower than that. Anyway, that's set up. So if we go, we can see that because of my min-max adjustments, the level is -22 now. You know, it's some relative term. So let's go here, and we're going to use our ears to determine this. So I'm going to play. We have a little bit of volume, and we're using scene controller 2 here. And we're going to turn it up until it's audibly where I want it. Remember, the max I made was like 0 dB, so that sounds about right. Let's see where we are. We're at -4, so we're close to where we were. And you're not always going to be turning this and matching. You might want to just use your ears, or you could have on the front panel of your unit. Oh, I have it. Why don't I do that? You know, you could do something like have the level up like that. And when you adjust this, you can see it in real time if I actually grab the right thing. So there's that. So I can do this and turn it to -3 specifically if I want, you know. So that's kind of, I like having the main screen up for certain things. Anyway, so here's what we had before. Right? And then in scene 2, it's going to be low because, you know, we didn't change that. And we wanted it louder. So let's go more than 87%. Now, the explanation of things always takes longer than actually doing it. And what's neat is right here, I actually have my, if I remember what it was, my drive and my levels here. So let's say that was just too low of a drive. I can turn it up here as well. Right? And let's say I didn't give myself enough headroom on this level here. So we can go back into the modifier and change the maximum. Now this does change your relative percentage, so you gotta figure that out, but we'll go up to +3. That should do well. And then if we look on our front screen here on scene 1, we can see that our level went up a little bit, so we need to adjust that. So if you're doing this sort of setup, this is a very particular type of thing. This isn't your regular amp adjusting experience. That's why it seems a little more complicated. And it is, like I said, between this and like, if the scene were to save every single dial and every single block, I don't know, I think that'd be a lot of memory, and basically that's preset memory at that point. Anyway, we have it back here, scene 1 back at about -3 if we look at our front panel. And then if we go to scene 2, we can adjust things now. So we'll turn it down a bit and then come back up. So now we can probably turn this down, turn this up until we need. But yeah, now on the amp block in scene 2, I have less drive within scene 1 because they're being controlled by scene controllers. And on the level parameter, that's also changing. For level adjustment, I think that's important enough to give it its own scene controller. But you can use the same scene controller for different parameters if you want. So we can do that. Let's turn these down. Just since I'm streaming, I don't want to like blow any heads. So we'll just turn these all the way down first. Now let's go back into the amp block and let's assign the same scene controller to control both the drive of the amp and the level. So this is a little interesting because you have to think one is going to go backwards, right? If we turn the drive up, we want to turn the level down usually. So we need to reverse the min-max on our level here. So the minimum is going to be, let's say 0. Let's just start there. We're staying in safe levels here. And then the minimum or the maximum is going to be. So one of these has to go opposite. Because if you turn drive up and you want level to come down with the same scene controller, one goes up, the other has to go down. You have to reverse min and max. Right now we have drive at 0 and level at 0.6. So this may not be the best audio example. I'm doing this on the fly, but we'll just look at the numbers here. So if we look at our scene controllers real quick, I have everything set to 0%. I'm using scene controller 1, 0%. Again, back at the amp, we have drive at 0, level at 0.6, a positive number. So let's go to our scene controller and turn this up. So we're going to expect the drive to turn up and the level to turn down, and it did. Now we have drive at 2.45 and level turned down. So if you do want to use scene controllers for something like drive or whatever, and then it makes the level change, you can use the same scene controller for different parameters. Most are going to use it like this, drive and level. And just remember, one of these, the min-max has to sort of be reversed. So you get a lower level as you turn the drive up, if that's what you need. Some higher gain amps, you turn up the drive and the volume doesn't increase that much. So you don't need to do anything like this. But we can go back to our controllers page and turn it up even more, or increase the scene controller. Now our drive went up a lot and our level went down. Let me play and see where we are. I'm usually sensitive about this on streaming. I don't want it to be loud. Okay. So from here, you kind of just need to get the ratio between drive and level set, and it'll be different for every single amp and the range of drive and things like that. You're going to have to figure it out. And where you want to set that is this, in the level min-max. Because scene controllers are a percentage, the percentage change between, let's just call this 0 and -20, the percentage change there is going to depend on what the range is. So 50% of 0 to -20 is -10. So we know right at 50% I'm at -10, and things like that. I wouldn't worry about the numbers. Just turn down a little bit so you don't blow anything. And just play with these ranges, Like if you're turning up your scene controller to get more drive, and then it turns down way too much, you're going to have to adjust one of these things. So usually the level, and let's say that's too loud. So I want the minimum to go down. Yeah. You want more range on the minimum. So now it's a little less loud. Yeah. This is exactly the reason I don't use this too much unless I need to. I was showing someone earlier that the way I adjust the same amp to have different qualities is I use another block. So we've been doing it for years with drive blocks. I don't have one in my preset, but we've had a clean guitar amp sound, and you play and it's clean, and then you want to change it. Instead of going and turning the dials on the amp, which is what scene controllers does, you would just slap a drive on the front. So we've been doing this forever. We use other blocks or pedals or effects or whatever you want to call it to adjust the same amp tone. And the way I do it, well, let me save this now that I have that. Let me go back to my actual preset. The way I've personally been doing it is with like EQ blocks or other sort of filter blocks, to adjust things. So I showed earlier that my clean sound sounds like this. And then for my lead tone, I change to scene 2, and all I do is I turn off the pitch and I add an EQ block with a huge boost, 10. I was actually figuring this out earlier. I have to adjust it a little bit. But now I have my clean lead sound. A little more punchy. It'll fit through the mix. I roll off lows and highs, so it's not everything coming up, but the level's like way up, right? And like I said, I am adjusting it currently to figure some things out. But instead of using scene controllers on the amp to increase drive or level or EQ, changing all that, I just use another block to do it, and that simplifies things a lot. Let's see. What's your methodology on dialing off low-end frequencies, cab block, amp settings, GEQ? Okay, when we're talking about the fundamental tone, you know, you're just starting with your amp and cab block. Maybe we'll do that. I personally like to start in the cab block. Okay, so we have a basic tone, and I can hear some low-end gruff. So I originally said cab block, but I do adjust the amp first. I like to see the range of the amp before I start changing any master EQ, I might call it, if we were in the studio, of the whole tone. I like to do later. So first I'll explore the amp itself and just see what everything does, because if I don't know the amp, I need to know what it does. So I might turn the bass down. And that got better, right? But let me put it back up. And so, yeah, I would start there. I would start with the tone controls of the amp. I don't know why I'm on ideal. Anyway, from there, let's just make it a little too bassy so we can exaggerate for the example. Okay, so originally I would adjust it from there, but the next step I do is I do like to use the cab block. I don't use the individual IR low and high cut yet, because if we add more cabs or IRs to this, you know, I'll have to adjust it for every single one. If I know in general there's way too much low end, I'll go, it's right these days here, it's in the preamp. I go to the filters. And what I do is it's super basic. I turn it up past where I want, and then I go back to where it is. That's how I do a lot of things. So let's just play. You know what? Let me get a loop going, because that might be a little easier. Okay. So we got that going on. So I'll go into the cab and just turn it up. Okay, now that's obviously too much. If I stop the loop and play, I know it's a little quiet. We'll adjust things as we go, but that's not enough low end. So I'll just go back and adjust the low end down until it is. I'll play the loop. You're listening through your computer speakers because this is direct. I'm listening through my in-ear monitors. So don't worry about the result of this. It's more the concept, because I'm not hearing what you're hearing. You're not hearing what I'm hearing. Anyway, don't worry about what the number ends up being. You may have to adjust this later, so keep that in mind. But don't worry about what this number actually ends up being. If someone were to say, hey, I low cut my cab block at 400 hertz, just hearing that, you go like, whoa, you're missing all this detail. But like, maybe that's the amount of low end you want compared to what the amp is giving. Remember, we turned the bass up to kind of exaggerate. But if it's 388 and that gets you what you want, then do it. At the gig or something, you know, you go to a different setup, you might need more low end, so you have to remember to come back here and adjust it. But just in general, don't worry about what this number becomes. So let's say this is like my ideal tone, and we haven't touched anything in the amp block, you know, except for we turned up bass. But so now I can get a little bit more level out of this. obviously I'd make other changes. I'd adjust mid and treble, maybe some depth and presence, whatever. But let's just say this is the tone we wanted, but it was just too much low end. This is where I would go. Cab block, the overall filters, not the ones per IR. I would use these if I'm mixing IRs and I know one specifically has too much low end or high end. Then I'd use that. But for the overall tone, this is the only place I personally do it. Because the cab block affects every amp channel that you might use, that's something to keep in mind of. But in my experience, once you get the cab block shaped for one tone, especially a distortion tone, which has a lot more harmonics, it kind of, everything else falls in place for me. It may not for you. But what's neat here is, let's say we've set this and that sounds good. That's a good, tone. That's the low end we want, since we're focusing on that. We could come in here and go to a clean amp. This is my favorite clean. And let's actually use a passive 5-band. That's what I use. And let me get a level here real quick. Okay, what I wanted to show is, so we've had this cab block cut all the way below, below 388. What you can do is now you can start like kind of squishing low end in there using some other things. It's still being cut, but because filters are like a slope, you can still push the low end in other places and sort of get it back if you want. But I found this works for me. So if I play, let's just play an E chord. Turn that down a little bit. I can add some more low end. Let me turn this drive down a bit. That's much more bassy, even though we have the cab like cutting pretty high in this example. We can add more bass from the bass itself. That's much more bassy. What we're missing though is like stuff way down, like 50 hertz up to 100 hertz. So maybe this is a little high. Again, this is an exaggerated example, but you can still get low end back, especially on clean amps, by adjusting this and your output EQ. So for me, what I do, if we go back to my actual preset here, I've designed this many, many years ago, and I've been using the same preset basically as the gear changes, and I just copy the settings basically and go for it from there. But when I initially design a preset, I'll just do what we just did, input, output, amp, and cab. And I'll think of like the core tones I want, and we have 4 channels in the amp block, so I'll design those 4 tones. I'll get it close using the basic tone dials and everything of the amp, right? From there, I'll choose the cabs I like, and I leave everything open. So here on my actual preset, I'm about just under 200 for me. The places I play, the speakers are usually so hyped in the low end that I just want to tame that going in without using their mixer or anything. So that's my actual setting for this preset. And I'll choose the cabs that I like, that have the tonality I want. I'll get as far as I can with the amp tone controls. From there, then I'll do the cab filter that we just talked about. How to use your pitch block. I will show you that in just a sec. I'll get a good range of low cut, high cut. Now, when you're playing for a while, in different gigs and using different speakers, you kind of get a sense of like how much low end is too much and high end and things like that. And for me, I know that setting around 200 hertz on this cab block does what I need. Once I have this set, then I can go back and go to the output EQ if I need to and adjust even more EQ, like specific to that amp channel. So that's kind of how I do it. I start wide open, amp and cab only, adjust the basics, and get close. If I feel it's too woofy, especially for low end, and honestly, I just do this everywhere. Like any place I play, I need to have less low end because it's just so hyped these days with subs and everything. So I turn that up to about 200. That's my number. You're going to have to determine your own. From there, I go back and like each individual channel, I can work with the output EQ if I need to. So on this one, I really want that spanky sort of clean for my middle position. So I've left the mids up. I don't know why that's dipped. It's usually 0. But and I've cut a little bit more low end and a little bit more high end. Rather than going back to the cab block and trying to, get everything set, here's where I'll do it per amp. I still use the tone controls if I want a quick sort of thing. It's hard to explain or describe, but I imagine each EQ section that we've described is like you set the first one and then that adjusts the range of the next things that you can use, right? So that's how I do it. I do use those. I don't use any other thing in the amp block typically. But yeah, hopefully that long explanation was good. I hope to be getting back into this. Sort of been MIA over the past couple years for reasons. It's been an interesting interesting little time we've all had, huh? I started working on my website a little bit. Trying to get back into that. That takes a lot of time too. But what I've done recently, I've actually started my own forum and I have my own Discord channel for AxeFxTutorials. So we all love the Fractal forum. This isn't a replacement at all, but if you want help from me specifically, I started my own forum. It's separate, so you will have to, sign up and do that. It's a totally separate thing, but we do have our own forum here now. No one's posted yet. That's okay. But you can post here. The interesting thing about this, what I've wanted on several platforms, which have never happened, is in this forum, for now, all the questions are just in one forum. We're not going to separate it by FM3, FM9. Just ask the question. I just need people to put what gear they're using so we can help fast. But on this forum, only the person who started the post can reply to it. Other people can't reply except for what I'm calling helpers. So right now I'm the only helper. I can go into any thread and answer, of course. But if we have several people posting, assuming I set it up correctly, only the person who started the thread can reply to it. So it's almost like a private message, but it's public. And the reason I'm keeping it public so other people can read it is so I can link to previous threads that have the same answer. Or, we can show people what goes on this forum. They need to be able to see it. I'll try and reply to it as often as I can. On the Fractal forum, I'm usually super quick on most things. I check it often. But I kind of wanted to do my own thing right now. So we do have this one, this forum. It's pretty similar to any other forum you've used. There will be reply areas if you want. You can create new threads. And I put a little example post. So yeah, please tell us what gear you're using and that sort of thing. Here. So yeah, we have our own forum. If you go to our AxeFxTutorials website, just AxeFxTutorials.com, I'm trying to get articles going again. Everything is everywhere. So I just made a 1902. These are sort of the latest things I've done back in April 2020. So it's been quite a while. But I do have links to the forum, and I also have a Discord. I'll show you that in just a sec. And another thing we're doing is we're using Coffee, I think they call it, or Ko-fi. I think it's Coffee, they pronounce it. It's a little support site. It's similar to Patreon, except you can just do one-time donations if you want, so you don't have to subscribe monthly. But I do have some monthly options, some tiers. You can look at that. I don't want to get into it too much. But yeah, we're trying to make this work. If I can get a little support on doing this, it takes a lot of time. If I can get some support going for AxeFxTutorials, I can put more time into it eventually. It'll take a little, got to get started, but I can put more time into this, do more guides. Like every firmware release, I would go in and either make a video or at least take pictures of where exactly the new things are and how they worked on my website. I just don't have time to do that right now. A lot of day job stuff going on. So if I can get some support here, I can put more time into this sort of thing, more live streams. We also have our own Discord, and we have a few things. Welcome and announcements and stuff. They just announced the Mark II version of the FC pedals. That's really cool. And if you join, everyone will join the community chat area. Everyone else can help here. And I'll try to help here as often as possible. If you do help us support us on Ko-fi, our support site, and you subscribe monthly to some tiers, you'll get a little bit more priority support, and I can help you there. I'll try to hang out just like this, how I'm doing on video here. I'll be hanging out here in tier 2 as often as I can on video, so you can just ask me questions right there, just like we're doing now. I can't do these all the time. But yeah, you can check that out. I'd rather do live streams and help people like in real time. I'm streaming on Twitch and YouTube here. Hopefully grow my Twitch audience back again. I started on Twitch in 2015 with this channel. But much appreciated. So yeah, check out the website. It has links to our forum and our Discord. I would like to help people as much as possible, as quickly as possible. I sleep and I work as well, so I'm not always going to be there immediately, but I'll try to be there as immediately as possible. But links are on AxeFxTutorials.com. If you want to support us, we're using Ko-fi. It's a website for support. You can do a one-time support, which I really appreciate. If you subscribe to some monthly tiers I've laid out, you can get more priority support from me. And on tier 2, I'll be hanging out in Discord just like this on video as often as I can. And you can just ask me things right there. I can show you. I'll have the gear set up, all the cameras and all that sort of thing. So just got to link your Discord to your Ko-fi account. You have to make an account, sorry. But yeah, we'll see. I want to get this going again. I'd love to help people more often and just show them the gear. Like, it's one thing to type on a forum for sure. I love it. But to just, hey, how do I do this? I'm already going. I have the cameras. Here's how to do it. I love that. So thank you all for hanging out. Yeah, no problem. I'll try to be here as often as I can. For these sort of YouTube streams, I don't know how often I'm doing this. Maybe once a week. I mean, I'll be doing it more often in my Discord, and definitely for the tier 2 sub if you guys want. But I like helping people. I really do. That's all I want to do. I just want to help people with their axe gear. It's very simple. And I think there's a lot of things that can get in the way of that, and a lot of like frustrating things on different forums and things. And I just want to cut through all that and like, how do I do this? Here's how to do it. Boom. Anyway, gonna go for now. Thank you so much. I will leave you with a little bit of reggae music and my goodbye screen. But yeah, thanks so much. If you have any questions and I'm signing off, hop into our Discord, get on our forum, ask there, and I will do my best to help you out. All right. Thanks so much.